Good afternoon. This is the West Hempstead Library bringing you Legally Speaking, what you need to know during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are recording this session.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zahava Schechter. I live here in West Hempstead. I'm an attorney for more than 30 years in New York State, and I thank the library for all of the programming that it's doing. And Roseanne Dorfman, thank you for inviting me to present what's happening in Nassau County as well as New York State, all the developments involved in the law and contracts, etc. So let's start. First, I want to give a disclaimer that this program is not a substitute for legal advice, and I am not providing any legal advice. And of course, there is my office phone. Hold on a minute. Sorry about that. I am working from home. Okay. And today is May 4th, 2020. If you have a question during the program, you can type your question in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer it. Or I give my email address, schechterlaw@gmail.com, or even my phone number. Someone did call me after the last program. I'm happy to take your calls. So good health remains paramount now. The New York State stay-at-home and pause orders are still in force until May 15th. Only essential businesses continue to operate. It's likely that construction will resume upstate May 15th or soon thereafter. What is happening here in Nassau County? Probably we are not opening as of May 15th, according to, sorry, now they're calling my cell phone number. According to Governor Cuomo's criteria. Wear mask order. So I just want to say here in West Hempstead, when my husband and I take walks, because we try to get outside, especially the weather's been beautiful, we are not seeing a lot of people wearing masks. And, you know, the mask is, yes, it's an order from New York State, but Governor Cuomo is not going to have the police enforcing that order. So it's really up to us as citizens, as residents of West Hempstead, to self-enforce, to make sure that we wear masks. Now, why do we wear masks? I'm going to move on very quickly, but we wear masks because we're protecting other people from our droplets. So when we wear the mask, it keeps our germs, our droplets to ourselves. And I see on the West Hempstead streets, not a lot of people wearing masks. So if you are taking a walk, or if you're biking, or whatever you're doing, please wear a mask. Be considerate of the rest of us who also want to stay well. Thank you. Nassau County court system. So there are a lot of changes here. I'm going to go through them quickly. In general, for new matters, only matters deemed essential or emergency are being accepted or heard, but I'm going to give a caveat to that in a minute. Existing cases are now being heard, both through video conferencing as well as by mail. There are documents going back and forth. Judges are strongly encouraging settlement of cases where possible. And in fact, I have cases that are reopening. I'm filing motions on existing cases. New matters may not yet be filed, but I expect that to change soon. New motions are being filed via e-file. I wanted to talk about that. Some courts are set up for electronic filing, such as the Suffolk County Surrogates Court, all of the Supreme Courts. Even though the name is Supreme, that's actually not the highest court in New York State. That is the lowest trial court. The highest court in New York State is called the Court of Appeals. But in any case, in Supreme Court, which is the lowest trial court, all cases, or almost all cases, are e-filed. So if you have a case in Supreme Court, that is definitely moving forward. I know I've been receiving emails, and other attorneys are also acting. I will say some attorneys are keeping their offices closed. I'm not quite sure why. I'm working remotely from home. I was on a Zoom call with 80 other trust and estates attorneys. Most of us are working. We're doing remote notarization, remote witnessing. We're certainly talking to clients. I had a phone conference this morning with a surrogates court. We are definitely working. So even if the courts aren't open yet, the county clerk's office is not open yet, things are opening and will continue to open. The only courthouse open right now to the public is 262 Old Country Road in Mineola. That remains the same, although every court now has, I believe, either 1 or 2 employees working in the physical court Everybody else is working remotely. And sometimes those people are available to attorneys, but certainly not to the general public. I did speak with a court employee this morning, which was amazing that they took my call. So I don't think the general public can get through, maybe just attorneys can get through, but things are opening up. If you have a pending case, definitely contact your attorney. As I've said to you, courts are reopening, at least a minimum, for filing motions online, possibly via mail. And with mail, I wouldn't send documents by regular mail. I would try to send it FedEx or UPS, at least so you have some kind of control, but certainly not for in-person matters. We're talking, the bar is talking about how we're going to go back to trials, back to in-person activities. Not quite sure how that's going to happen because we'll have to maintain the 6-foot distance, and we have to wait for the Office of Court Administration to let us know how that will happen, but cases are proceeding. So which kinds of cases are courts hearing now? Actually, some new cases are being filed. So New York Surrogates Court, that's Manhattan. And again, Surrogates Court is the only court that has jurisdiction over dead people, is accepting new probate, meaning there's a will, or administration, no will petitions. They are accepting new petitions. And so if it doesn't really matter where you died, it's where you resided, where your legal residence was. So if you died, I shouldn't say that, if you resided, if you lived in Manhattan, wherever, it didn't matter where you died, the attorney can now file a new petition in New York County Surrogates Court. And I believe that will open. I have a case I need to file in Brooklyn and Kings County Surrogates Court, and I'm waiting for a response from them as to whether I can send it in this week. Suffolk County Surrogates Court manages all files online. So I expect that that court, Suffolk County, will be open quickly. What's happening in Nassau County? Right now, they are not accepting new petitions, only pending petitions. So criminal court, I said this last week, and it's continuing. There are new arrests and arraignments, although there is a lower crime rate, which is good. And a lot of people have been released. I read about Dean Skilos being released, and other, not only high profile, but lower profile, non-violent inmates are being released. Number one, because of the spread of coronavirus, not only among inmates, but also corrections officers, and the fact that it's impossible in the jail really to keep the 6-foot distance between inmates if the jail is at full capacity. Family matrimonial matters. I know we're all reading about order of protection problems. Domestic violence has gone up, at least the reports have gone up over 30% in April, which is a staggering figure. Those are only the reports, meaning the cases being reported. So it would likely, the number is probably greater, unfortunately. I want to talk about visitation. If anyone's watching this and has a visitation order, this is a big problem with matrimonial cases right now, where custodial versus non-custodial parents, some of them don't want to return the child either back to the custodial home, or if there is an infection in one of the homes. This is a major problem. I spoke this week with a colleague of mine who told me that you need to ask, that the attorney needs to request from the judge the permission to bring a violation of a visitation order proceeding. Generally, judges aren't hearing them. So I don't want to empower or embolden parents who are not returning children, but at the same time, unless there are, I don't even know what the circumstances would be, the judges are not enforcing the visitation orders, generally speaking. Obviously, every case has its own situation. If this is affecting anyone you know, that person should speak with a matrimonial attorney. Mental health and guardianship matters, nursing home rates. I saw in Newsday today that 393 persons have died of coronavirus who are West Hempstead residents. And, we don't know who those people are, but nursing homes have been full, and there are people in various nursing homes in Nassau County who don't have either a guardian available, or they don't have documents, estate documents in place. So the Supreme Court is hearing mental health and guardianship matters. In surrogates court, I did talk about burial last week, burial issues. Somebody needs to be buried and doesn't have, I'm gonna move this up, doesn't have money, and a family member needs to bury that person. So that's not a good thing. And that's also a reason to apply to surrogates court. I don't know if you can see this. I'm moving this around here. I want to talk about stimulus checks. Hopefully everyone's gotten their stimulus checks. What's interesting is, and I learned this on a Zoom call, so the Department of the Treasury has sent a check in the sum of $1,200 to every taxpayer, at least from 2019, up to a certain adjusted gross income. So is someone who died in 2020, whether from coronavirus or another illness, or even by natural causes, entitled to this check? So the answer is probably not, but it is unclear. The IRS guidelines reference taxpayers in 2019 who are likely to file a 2020 tax return by April of 2021. However, the IRS has said that estates and trusts, which carry their own tax ID numbers, are not eligible for the check. So maybe that applies to people who die in 2020. There is no guidance from the IRS at this time. So if this happens to a family member of yours who has passed in 2020, expect that the check will be returned. What about Social Security payments, especially for somebody who has died due to coronavirus or otherwise in 2020? So Social Security Administration is basically closed right now, except for some people answering remotely by telephone. Section 202 of the Social Security Act determined that benefits are paid through the month before the month in which the recipient dies. Therefore, no benefits are paid for the month of death. For example, Social Security recipient dies on March 30th, 2020. The March 2020 Social Security Administration payment needs to be repaid. This has been the rule since 1939. By the way, this rule does not apply to Medicare, which does pay benefits until the date of death. So what happens if a family member or a friend or someone for whom you are responsible or you're helping dies during this period when the Social Security Administration is basically closed? What to do about the excess payments? So I give you the phone number as well as the website to ask for direction. But basically, my colleagues and I are finding one of two things. Either, if you can, keep the decedent's, that's the person who died, bank account open and wait for Social Security to withdraw the funds. But that's not always the best option. Sometimes you need to close these accounts, or you wait until the local Social Security office reopens and bring a check. But that may not happen for a while, so that's not a great option either. So again, I've given you the phone number and the website address. I would call and ask for some guidance. Otherwise, if that money needs to be repaid, which it will likely need to be repaid at some point in the future, you need to figure out how to do that. Real estate transactions, lots of changes here. Residential and commercial real estate businesses are deemed essential and everyone is working. So is now a good time to list your property or to buy one? So the best plan right now is to choose your real estate broker and get ready. There is no way to see a house in person, and properties which remain on the market for a long time are at risk of becoming stale. So if you're selling, certainly talk to your real estate broker, and it's important to price your home well so that it sells. Having said that, this is a great time for first-time home buyers. Mortgage rates are very low. Buyers need a higher FICO score, though, to qualify for, that's a credit score, to qualify for a mortgage. I believe Chase is not even considering anyone with a FICO score lower than 700. But this is a change. Buyers coming from New York City may be looking for more living space now that they've been cooped up in small apartments in the city, and they're looking for some land. And so I spoke with a local broker here in West Hempstead this week who told me that her office is suggesting that there may be a very great demand in the Nassau County towns near New York City, as well as in the Hamptons, as New York City residents are looking to move out of the city. And certainly if you are looking to sell your house and you get an offer, you should consider it. So I received a call yesterday from a Suffolk County realtor with whom I'm working, and I'm on dealing with a house in Deer Park, and although there are no open houses that you could physically go into, a buyer saw the virtual open house. The seller paid for a company to come in, a videographer to come in and do a nice virtual tour. And within 2 days, the seller received a full asking price offer, meaning whatever amount the house was, it was about $600,000. The buyer offered exactly that amount. Now that's unusual, especially in this market. So if you are considering selling your house and you get such a good offer, I would suggest that you seriously consider it. And very soon, when Nassau and Suffolk counties open up more, there will be a glut on the market. The same broker from Suffolk County told me that she is waiting on 5 or 6 houses for which she already has listing agreements. She's just waiting until things open up. And if she has 5 or 6 and another broker has 5 or 6 and you build up exponentially, there will be a glut of properties on the market. So just be aware that if you are selling your house and you're marketing your house, you are competing with the other houses on the market. And so if you do so now and you get a good offer, it might be worth considering. Are your affairs in order? Business matters, personal matters, healthcare instructions, end of life wishes. We've talked about this over the weeks. I just want to say that we continue, attorneys and notaries, public, continue to execute. That means witness, sign, etc., legal documents remotely via those executive orders that I list, and that's by Zoom or Skype or FaceTime or some other way of verifying who the person signing is. So if you need documents signed, they can be done. There is no delay. In fact, just yesterday, I executed another will, so remotely, so it can be done. I just want to talk about something that came up in last week's presentation or after last week's presentation, special consideration where family members or beneficiaries receive government benefits, because I received a question. So people who receive Medicaid, SSI, etc., those benefits will probably lose their benefits when they receive by gift or inheritance assets greater than the allowable amount. I know that that's a mouthful, but the idea is that if you have assets, if you receive government benefits, you're only allowed to have assets up to $15,450 and a monthly income of $859. Now, there are exceptions where you're married, etc. I'm not going into exceptions. That's the basic rule. If someone is receiving Medicaid or other government benefits, I'm not talking about Medicare. Medicare is different from Medicaid, right? So Medicare is age-based. If you're 65, whether you're poor or 65 years of age, whether you're poor or whether you're wealthy, you qualify for Medicare, and 65 and older. Medicaid is financially based. So you could be a day old or you could be elderly. It's not an issue of age, it's an issue of money. And you need to basically be poor, relatively poor, to receive Medicaid. But in any case, there are various rules concerning Medicaid and other governmental other governmental assistance benefits. So if you run afoul of those rules, you could be bumped off the roll, which for many people is an important way of living. So be careful not to name any of these types of recipients as either joint owners, in which case they own the property as well, or beneficiaries of assets, as this would disqualify them from receipt of government benefits. Okay, this subject requires a much longer in-depth conversation, but I just want to make everyone aware of this. Be careful when you're dealing with anyone who might receive money, whether by gift or inheritance, gift during their lifetime, inheritance after you pass, because it might remove them from the rolls. Again, there are 3 basic documents of estate planning: healthcare proxy, power of attorney, and will. I'm actually not going to go through the documents this time. I do want to talk about long-term care insurance and life insurance. People have asked me about life insurance and whether it's a good idea to have it. I like term life insurance. It's relatively inexpensive, but it's only really meant for recipients or for beneficiaries who rely on you to support them. So for example, if you're if you have children and they're all grown and they're taking care of themselves, they're self-sufficient, you may not need life insurance because there's no one who is relying upon you to help them financially. So again, this is a very fact-specific situation. I've been asked about whole life insurance. I don't really like whole life. It's for savings, but it's a very expensive property. Very expensive item. Can't think of the word right now. So whole life is not necessarily the best type of insurance. I do think term life is better. However, there are circumstances which are appropriate for every type of insurance. Again, check beneficiary designations on all bank, brokerage, and retirement accounts, insurance policies, etc. I got a new file last week. I'm probating a will of someone who, for every asset had a beneficiary except for one. And that asset had no beneficiary named, and so we have to probate the will. Thankfully, he has a will. The decedent I'm talking about, the family is able to do it. But it's a shame because had there been a beneficiary on that one asset, that one last asset, we wouldn't have to probate the will and it would be less expensive and much easier. And that's it. If anyone has a question, you can text me now or you can email me or call me. And I hope everyone is well. Thank you so much for your time. Back to you, Roseanne.